After a wild day of games yesterday and a multitude of teams making it into the playoffs via the LCQ and qualifying for the 64-team playoff bracket, it's now time for the Northeast portion as well as the East to go head-to-head in what will be a wonderful, wonderful ending to the, well, kind of regular season into the postseason of the CCL playoffs. My name is Cornell, with me is Cash. And again, we have Michigan State, Cornell, Big Red going up against it in a best-of-5 series in an elimination match to see who will move on and who will find themselves, unfortunately, ending their CCL season early.
Yeah, and we've got a couple cool storylines to follow tonight, specifically with the squads we have here first. So we're in for a great night. We were talking before we came on here, and we love playoff time. It just brings a different element out of teams, and I'm just so excited to see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, out of teams, out of players, we can even throw it all the way back to last year and in years previous before that as well. There's always those big moments that leave you with questions about some teams, but also answers at the same time. Who will be stepping it up when you get into those big moments? One player that comes to mind automatically is playoff Red Chase. We know him, we love him, we see him every year, but that's for a different story, and of course at a different time. Cornell, Big Red, Michigan State, COD. Cash, this again is a matchup of a team that comes off of a pretty solid Tier 3 performance inside of the Northeast region. And for Cornell, you come out of a performance out of the top 4 in Tier 4. So that's how you made it to the LCQ. We'll go ahead and take a look at the teams overall in their head-to-head. But again, you mentioned some storylines beforehand. The big one being, at least for the side of Cornell, a few players will have their last rendezvous potentially here instead of the CCL, players who have been around all the way. We'll touch on that when we get to the roster portion. But head-wise, 10-10 for Michigan State over the 7-10 record for Cornell Esports. You would favor, at least on paper, the side of Michigan State when it comes to respawns, but that S&D is where the blemish comes through.
That's what I was going to comment on, was that's kind of that glaring, like you said, blemish where, okay, if a team's wanting to take modes and really kind of change the tides of their series, whether that's in a map number 2 or map number 5 fashion, against this Michigan State squad, that's definitely something they know teams are going to be gunning for. So looking at the Spartans, it's how have they prepped around this, knowing that is their weaker mode. You know they've been trying to find ways to compensate it, and that's also in improving their respawns as well.
The next round, the winner of this game will play up against JWU. The good news is, at least for these two teams, is JWU hasn't had the strongest and or weak this season. They're a team that's not going to be easy, but it's not a team that's going to be too difficult to overcome, especially being a Tier 3 and or Tier 4 team like Michigan State and Cornell Esports are. So, that's going to be at least a decent way to start moving forward. But then when you look at the game past that for the playoff qualification match, Cash, that's where you play the Fanshawe Fuel, and that's where they wait. And they looked really good last week on stream. I expect them to be able to make it into playoffs without too much of a hitch. Anyways, we'll take a look at the Michigan State roster overall. This 4-man roster in their debut season into the CCL have had a really good run of things. Being in Tier 3 is not a bad thing whatsoever, and being in a spot where you can qualify for playoffs with 2 wins in the LCQ, that's a W for the program at Michigan State as a whole. Cardiac, Breezy, Mikey, and Sinjet will be the 4-man roster taking on the Cornell Esports roster as well. And Cash, we've gotten to see a decent amount of Michigan State on stream throughout the year. They've impressed in some ways, and again, as we kind of talked about that S&D, it just has to be better.
It does, especially come playoff time. I mean, the timeless saying of Game 5s win championships. They're going to find themselves pushed to the limit, especially in this postseason. Have they sharpened up and have they exploited their weaknesses? Have they had other teams exploit their weaknesses to the point where they know what they need to work on? I'm going to say yes. Like you said, for this being the first year, this has already been a solid enough season, but they're hungry and they want more. Teams are going to come gunning for that map 2 and 5. Can you compensate by coming out of the gates early and swinging in those first modes? With a squad as strong as these 4 and how solid they've been playing all around, you look to see them make a statement early.
We go from a team that's had a solid first year as a program in the CCL with a great groundwork from improvement. Now we go to the Cornell roster on the flip side, and we talk about players who have been here since really the foundation of the Collegiate Call of Duty League in Season 0. You look to Shane Thor and Lonely Doc, who have been here since the very beginning, and this could be their last hurrah inside of the CCL. Cash. It's a sad day, but at the same time, it's also one that can leave for some excitement going forward, specifically if they are able to take down Michigan State here. That's not to downplay Payne and Val on this roster as well. But when we talk about a potential final game for 2 players who have been here since the very beginning, the OGs of Collegiate Call of Duty, It's definitely a sad one and a storyline to watch out for throughout the entirety of the series.
It absolutely is. Whatever team you're repping in the CCL, you've just always got to pay homage and respects to the originals who have been here from the jump. And it's really exciting just to have that, return collegiate players come back for Cornell, and to have the impact that they have had on the CCL as a whole has been one that will never be forgotten. So their legacy, no matter how tonight goes, is always going to be felt and remembered. And it's just like you said, a wonderful storyline that we get to follow here as the night goes on. And, for Cornell, hopefully as the rest of their playoffs go on.
Well, speaking of storylines, we have our map set for us, and if you like Berlin and Tuscan, well, you're in for a treat. We'll start with map 1 on Berlin. We'll have a triple dose of Tuscan in the mid portion of the sandwich, finally followed out by Berlin for the final map for map number 5. If we need to go to the distance, this is a series that, at least to me, in a multitude of ways, can go either really good for Michigan State and Cornell or really bad at the same time. We could easily see this being a 3-0 for either team, or it even going down to that game 5 at the very end. We love to hype up series and play them off as close as humanly possible, but this is truly, with no lies, a series that I think has the potential to go all the way.
It most definitely does. Given that Berlin and Tuscan play kind of the most up and down of the map pool that we have, really it's going to be who's playing more fundamentally sound COD at the end of the day, and who's minimizing their mistakes, capitalizing on the opponents in turn. So yeah, and it's also playoff time, so anything can happen. Again, both of these teams, like you said, have the potential to 3-0, but given that the nature of what we've seen from the first night of LCQ, anything can go to a game 5. We've seen already just unbelievable situations really start to rear their heads, and I expect nothing less from this tonight. So you try to predict, like you said, up on the desk, like, oh, I'm feeling this way, or on paper it looks like this. Yeah. When playoffs come, you just throw it all out the window and say, we'll take it as it comes, and we'll kind of, build the storylines as you guys are watching as well, because there's just too much to predict and so much on the line with these teams. And you just get different COD when it comes to tournament or postseason tournaments.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to the old cliche, whether it be traditional sports or esports in general, there's nothing scarier than a team that has nothing to lose. The problem is in this series is that both teams really have nothing to lose, because if you lose, you go home. And so all you have is to go up from here, and if not, the CCL season's over. So yes, is there pressure to keep your season alive? Absolutely. But when you have nothing to lose at the same time, whether it be a win or a loss, really nothing changes, because it's going to be a difficult matchup between the next two teams that you're going to play anyways. This is a round 3 matchup before we get into the round 2 and round 1 for the qualification matchup. These teams were put in a pretty difficult situation to begin with, not being able to, just have 1 or 2 games auto qualify for playoffs. You gotta go through the entire ringer of everything. So as we get ready to set up for the map 1 hard point, obviously we look back and we can kind of, at least on paper, just see the differences between these teams. In the hard point, you'd, again, on paper, directly back into cash the point. You don't know what's going to happen, but it would favor Michigan State in that regard over Cornell, just simply off the statistics that we have coming into this.
You would, and you would also anticipate Michigan State coming into this knowing that they're going to have a leg up in the respawns, and they should come out of the gates hot with that. You don't want to put yourself in a hole. You want to do the opposite. You want to try to build any kind of lead that you can. Expect them to come out swinging in this, but like you said, Cornell, they're aware that, they've got nothing to lose in the respawns, because they know, again, on paper, that they're the inferior team. With nothing to lose, you just might come out and start winning rotations and gunfights that you wouldn't, because whenever you play more relaxed, the game plays much differently, and that's through any kind of competitive sport. So if you just come out and play relaxed and try to do your thing, have clean comms, I mean, this could go Cornell's way. That's what's so fun about playoffs. Is, like, I know there's so much mystery and not being able to predict too much, but yeah, for Michigan State, I feel like there's going to be more pressure on them, because they're going to be the ones expected to win this hard point, and they're going to try to play a little more clinically, where maybe Cornell could pull off the shocker and just say, play more relaxed and go out and take it. But yeah, for Michigan State, I expect them to come out hot here and try to take map 1.
That's crazy too, because like when you have the conversation of like, okay, yeah, well, Michigan State should be favored to win the hard point, they're also kind of favored in the grand scheme of things inside of this series. And that's because they were inside of that tier 3 portion opposed to Cornell, who's coming out of tier 4. So when you they had a decent stage 2 as well when they were sitting inside of tier 3. Like, obviously they're playing, relatively similar skilled teams against themselves, and they were starting to really improve in that way. I just want to see those improvements go forward. Unfortunately, again, I just going back and back and back to that search and destroy, because that to me, only having 3 wins on a season, even with having a good stage 2, that doesn't bode well for going into playoffs. So that is one thing you have to focus on, hit on hard. We'll talk more about that when we get to the S&D. But for map number 1 in Berlin, you have to feel like, at least for a keys to victory standpoint for Michigan State, you have to take the respawn. You have to come out of the gate swinging against this Cornell roster, because if you fall early and allow Cornell to take an S&D off of you, and then you maybe go down 0-2 in the series, especially in the last hurrah for Lonely Doc and Shane Thor, it's not going to be good at all for you, and it might be your demise inside of your season. You're going home empty-handed with nothing in an 0-3 loss. So Michigan State, Cornell here. Berlin, route number 1, a 10-point lead already for Cornell. Michigan State now in for the break for the first time. First one goes to the hands of Cardiac, and now Ace will find himself the 40 on the front.
Val going in for the chase just to cut that player mid-map. Spawning on the left-hand side is going to be Michigan State. So the favored one for P5 and now or P1, but now that we're over halfway through it, that is not going to matter much. If you are Cornell, you have looked to try and hold on to the right-hand side of the map and make the rotation over to P2, but they haven't had their eyes set on that just yet. They're trying to get as much of this time as possible, looking to be near 40 seconds when this is all said and done. Michigan State going in for one last contest, but on the rotation and very cleanly is going to be Michigan State. They're going to try to look to hold this early. It's going to be a pinch play coming in for Cornell to try to get the break.
It's kind of a big moment for me. Obviously, you rotate early, and you're trying to go ahead and find these initial kills over towards that next point. The big problem here, at least early, is you weren't winning the initial gunfight. So Michigan State will find themselves their first bit of time here inside of map number 1. Everybody swarming in for the side of Cornell around the outside. Lonely Doc will come in, find 2 with the Automaton. Payne will just be sitting in a corner waiting for a contestation here from Michigan State. Unfortunately, there, you get killed from behind, but Lonely Doc will be there to find number 3 in a row. So Cornell found themselves a break when Michigan State rotated out early. And Cash, that's what I didn't want to see out of Michigan State, because that doesn't set a good precedence for the rest of this hard point.
It doesn't. When you get broken early after losing 40 seconds off the first hill, that's already put yourself in a hole that you're going to have to climb yourself out of. Berlin can be a very tricky map and can be punishing on rotations if you aren't making them. Cornell players already backed all the way up down BS and D Street, trying to chain together P2 to P3 and look to do just that. You're going to get the last bit of scrap time if you're Michigan State, but Cornell have been winning not only the gunfights in the hill, but around the map, setting themselves up to really blow this lead out of the water. And at P3, they have a very good chance to hit the 100-point mark, so they could come out here and, like you said with the storyline, Store and Lonely Doc, look at how strongly they're playing. Doc on a 5 streak, looking to try to get some streaks, and that can just really come out and light a fire under a team and get them going. They're coming out very hot here, Michigan State. They have to respond quickly and with the break now.
With the 5 streak there, but the break on back in toward the hill. Finally will fall. 2-2 trade back and forth. Michigan to get in for the time, but it's going to be Val who's there, left with the MP40 in hand, trying to go ahead and cut down the last Michigan State players. We're trying to contest the last 25 seconds of scrap time. So we start to make our rotation all the way across to the right side of the map. You're going to see player number 1 spawns in a far spot from P3. However, that sets up perfectly for P4. And once again, Michigan State try to set themselves up at about the half-yard line of the map and make sure that Cornell can't make their way forward. Around over towards that right side of the map on the north portion, you see Sinjet who's on 5 in a row, looks for Shane Thor, tries to find number 6. Oh, that's a beautiful pop around the corner. That's 10-4 for Shane Thor. Mr. COD agent's having his way on Berlin.
Cornell on the rotation, cutting so many lanes of the map down, funneling Michigan State into this bottom corner. And for Michigan State to have to mount a comeback on P4, this is the least hill I would want to try to mount any kind of comeback on. It is so hard to hold because there are so many lanes you have to watch. The kill feed goes 2 for 2, but for Michigan State, they have so much to look at, and now having lost back spawns, it's just hard to even get on the time because it's so open. Cornell have done a wonderful job breaking into this hill, not even to get time for themselves, but keeping Michigan State off of it, still maintaining their 70 to 75 point lead. So again, not a great hill Michigan State have been able to respond on. They've got to try to look ahead at P5 and P1 as we get back around to it. Really keep Cornell out of it as well, but it's been Big Red winning around the map and winning those gunfights. They've been contesting the lanes they've needed, forcing Michigan State to have to funnel through and making the reads.
Cardiac up top of P5, looks down the Lonely Doc from below. Mikey will be there for help. It will be a 1-for-1 trade that allows Ace to go ahead and find him his way up and toward the top of P5. You look down over the top, you see Payne, who's been laying down, waiting for a contestant to come on through. Michigan State, thus far, hasn't found their way on the map in the way that they might have liked to, but after a decently strong P4, and now a rotation on over towards P5, they're starting to win their gunfights. The guns are getting a bit warmer, and they're now being able to at least push their way around the map as they so fit. So, now, if you look to the middle, the white arrows from Cornell trying to find their way back onto the point. The first contestant is going to be there. Sinjet will find one. in the second one there will get cut down by Sinjet yet again. This is all going to be leading back over towards P1, where Cornell have set themselves up, and on the rotation, it could be just what Cornell need to once again extend that lead to maybe about 100 points.
As you said, Cornell, they have done a great job. Yeah, you give Michigan State a bit of time on P5, but you haven't let them cross that 50-yard line of the map to try and contest P1. So for this initial bit of time, it should go fairly cleanly the way of Cornell. Players now pushing up and in through train. Now that you have the mid-map secured, you know exactly where this hit's coming from. You've got to be ready for it. And as Cornell have done, they can try to blow this lead out by winning these gunfights on the site. Players now trying to work a pinch on the hill.
Cardiac up top, tries to turn around into Lonely Doc, but he pairs for a nice little double. Ace finally there for a trade. 40 seconds left on the hill. Michigan State have done a great job of being able to break in and win the initial gunfights through the front. This is what we wanted to see early on from Michigan State. Sinjet will find number 3. You keep looking over towards the front. You have Mikey who's trying to hold from P5, and I actually do like the route that Lonely Doc is taking over towards P2, because if you're Cornell, you're okay with giving up the scrap time right now and just setting up for P2, because that's the hill that you really started to gain your lead on against the Michigan State roster in the first set of rotations. You just can't let what Michigan State had happen to them happen to you.
That's exactly the case, but Michigan State, they are clean on the rotation to start. Of course, Lonely Doc sitting in the top corner does have to be taken care of, but they had all of their lanes covered. The mid-map was open for a moment, but player 2 and 4, Mikey and Cardiac, were able to pick that up and cut the players down, trying to get over from P3. Now you have player 3, Sinjet, making the rotation over and shooting players in the back to try and grant as much clearance on the hill as possible. Now within a 10-point game, Michigan State have fought their way back into this one, and Lonely feeling himself there. Feeling lonely on the site now that he's cleared the rest of these players out. Michigan State back to square one as they have to fight their way in. Like you said, this is where Cornell Big Red were able to get a substantial amount of time and really put Michigan State out of the running. If Michigan State can get in and get any amount of time on this hill, that's going to be a win and an improvement from them the first go-around.
I mean, it's crazy for Cornell, right? Like, obviously, you started out the game relatively hot. It's been cool ever since then, but, you know, you still have yourselves a lead. While Payne's at 5-17, everybody else is slaying out, and the numbers look kind of relatively even across the boards. But, I mean, there's two main statistics here. One is Shane 4 on 3 in a row. The other one's Sinjet, who tries to get the kill there with a pistol. Val will go ahead and hold on for the last time, but if Michigan State on the rotation, if Shane Thor wins that gunfight there, maybe you get the chance to get around in the back. Fortunately enough, though, for Michigan State, you rotate out early, you win the initial gunfights yet again. Now Mike can come on a long flank around the back and try to go ahead and cut number 2. Engagement goes his way, and that's going to force Michigan State to spawn close still.
Making good reads is Michigan State at the moment. You have someone deep securing spawns, and you're losing the gunfights on the hill, but players are immediately there to try to rotate back in and get into this hill. For Michigan State, they've been doing a great job at winning around the map. Now, sure, they haven't zoned off any of the sites, but where they've needed to break in and win the gunfights, they've done enough to have some roaming slayers, like you said, in Mikey, shooting players in the back after making a flank. They haven't had a full squad zoning out, but players on rotation have been the roaming slayer and finding success just to make it that much harder for Cornell to get back in. Like you said, it's kind of been lukewarm for Cornell ever since the start. Michigan State, they have found their bearing and their footing on the map, now extending their lead out to 20 points and looking to try to cross that 200-point mark as we have our eyes set to P4. It is Cornell's turn to have to try to make a response here, and for Michigan State, they're going to try to hit through all lanes in the map.
Win or lose, Shane Thor is going to be able to give you multiple amount of kills throughout the entirety of the map. That's given. Cardiac to the back is going to be able to pick up a double. That's actually going to give Michigan State the spawns. However, you still have Payne and Shane looking to the front. And look over towards the point, keeping them off of it. And this is what they did really well last time. They were able to not allow Michigan State onto the point. That's what ultimately allowed them to keep at least the game close for a good amount of time. But now you're facing a deficit of 20 points, and Michigan State are still flying in towards this hill. You know, you hate to depend on one player. And yes, Shane Thor is slaying out, but he's only got 22 seconds. I'd love to see him play in and around the hill just a bit more and at least have more influence in this laying on the ground.
Definitely, OBJ play wins games, and that's what you need to see from Cornell, the adjustment to try to get them back in this. Yeah, they've been able to win gunfights. It hasn't translated to hill time because Michigan State collectively have 3 players at the minute mark of hill time, only 2 for the side of Cornell, and that has made the difference. Everyone for Michigan State have stepped up and really slid into the roles that they've needed to around the map, and that's been one player soaking up time, the other 2 being able to rotate in whenever they fall. And they're playing together. I mean, just look at how bunched they are in P2, just trying to make this hit and keep these Cornell players off the hill. Now you see the opportunity for a pinch play to develop. Whenever they try to get off spawn, it does get sniffed out by Thor, and now it's Cornell with control of the hill. But having a look at how Michigan State have played the latter half of this S&D, they have just flooded the lanes and filled where they've needed to and had players play so well off the rotation when they fall. But whenever Shane Thor's shooting like that and on 8, this could get crazy here towards the tail end of it, given that he has full streaks, and now they're at that 200-point mark.
Streaks now for Cornell. Michigan State still over towards P5. Shane would love to go ahead and maybe get some scrap time, but the streak comes to an end. However, the damage is in and done. It's Shane Thor now at 35 and 21. Has streaks to work with here into P1 and the P2 rotation if we need to get there. And we most likely will, since Michigan State is now set up over in towards P1. All 4 players are going to be in towards that point. The respawn's now going to be in for Cornell. So you're going to have to make that long trek across the map. Spawn in 2 different locations. There's up in, basically a pinch play here for Cornell. Maybe they didn't make it themselves, but the game gave it to them for free. However, you got to win the gunfights if you want that to be able to come into fruition, and unfortunately they haven't. So Michigan State can still win off this for free. There's 35 left on the hill, and it's still the gunfights going in the way of green. They're having a great hill here. This might be for the game.
And it started with them making the read on the split spawns that allowed them to not get caught off guard. Cornell are able to get in for the contest, but you have the lanes locked to where Cornell have to flood in. You have the win condition set. You know they have to flood in from P1 because you can still win on this hill. It's just a matter of holding your pre-aims and mowing the players down as they run out, because it is very much desperation time for Cornell if they want to try to stay in this.
You gotta fly in. When with 6 seconds left, you do, but Michigan State's already on the rotation, and you have nobody there to contest that for. Unless Lonely's able to make a crazy play, you lost this game. Inside of the point, not gonna be able to find anything with the glide bomb. 4 seconds left. Test is going to be there. Cardiac goes for 1. Lonely Doc is there, but Ace comes in to shut everybody else down. 250 to 213. The Spartans, they'll take map number 1 over the side of Cornell. They'll enjoy themselves a nice 1-0 lead.
Started that one slow, but once they found footing, Michigan State were able to take off, and really Cornell never got a good hill to answer back with. They were able to maybe split them 30-30 at best, but behind slaying, as you had said, for Cornell, it just wasn't enough. You would have liked to have seen a couple more players try to get a bit more hill time. 3 players well over the 60-second mark, looking more towards 90 seconds there of objective time, and good stat lines across the board as far as kills go as well. So for Michigan State, the respawn you would have expected out of them, maybe a little closer times than you wanted to, but again, looking at this Cornell squad and the storylines we're following between Lonely and Shane Thor, you don't expect anything less than a competitive game from them, but Michigan State take care of business.
Look at the statistics once again from the map. 37 and 23 from Shane Thor. On the flip side, though, 35 and 18 from Sinjet. Both of those players, you can see slaying was the same, but there was one statistic that was clearly different between the two, and that was the amount of hill time that they were able to garner for their team. Sinjet obviously on top of that by a long shot. It was 1 minute 23 compared to just 28 measly seconds there from Shane Thor. Obviously, Shane knows what it takes to be able to win games, but you've got to be able to play the objective with your team there, especially towards the end of the game. There was a lot of times where, you were slaying around the map, and it was great. You got those tricks. You found no use out of them, and you also weren't playing the hill. There was a lot of time where you could get into P5. You just didn't play it there towards the end. So, you hate to fault a couple of players even when they have a great performance, but it's just little things like that that you can clean up going forward. I don't expect the series to be over just based off of one map, but it actually goes back to the keys to success that we had going into this match. It was the fact that Michigan State needed to come out and take map number 1 with how bad their SPB struggles were. They do just that, and they enjoy a 1-0 series, which could very easily turn into a 1-1 tie series and then force at least another map at map number 4. So now as we start talking about the search and destroy here, Cash, give me some things that you'd like to see from Cornell here just to take care of Michigan State a bit more.
Yeah, so for Cornell, what I'd like to see out of them, of course, OBJ play does make a difference, especially in S&D, right? You would like to have them lay the bomb down quickly on the offensive rounds, make quick retakes on the defensive rounds as well. But to come back truly in this S&D and make a statement, it's got to be more collective teamwork. Of course, Payne had a slower respawn there, and it was a really solid look for Michigan State. So if it can just be a more balanced, objective-focused approach from Cornell, I think they're going to be just fine. But for Michigan State, I mean, you didn't do much wrong. Granted, they didn't have a ton of map presence. It's not like they held a good spread or a zoning, but they had 3 players sitting in and around the site and 1 roaming Slayer that was able to pick people off. So whatever's been working for them, I'd like to see them continue that trend. For Cornell, just a little bit more coordinated.
We have a couple of technical issues that we need to figure out in the background, so we're going to send things to a quick break, but I promise you we'll get into the S&D just as soon as we possibly can. We'll be back in just a minute here for the CCL. Michigan State, Cornell, 1-0 up in the series for the Spartans. Well, hopefully the technical issues on my mic are good for now, but welcome back. Michigan State enjoying a nice 1-0 lead over Cornell. Big Red going into the search and destroy. Cash was making a point beforehand before we sent it to a break, so I'll let her kind of finish out what she was saying. Cash, overall, what are you looking for inside of the S&D going forward, aside from what we were kind of talking about before break?
Yeah, so it's kind of follows that same line of traditional sports where if you've ever been in the locker room for sports or just heard interviews or different things. Of course, Cornell, they need to play a little more coordinated and everything, but it's playoff time. It's tournament time. If you're in a locker room, coach is going to say everyone has to be ready to step up and make the big play. At some point in the series, someone, and you can look at either squad, but someone is going to have to step up and make the game-changing or series-defining play. You can't be scared for it to be your opportunity. We've already seen in the CCL, LCQ, where players who are having statistically bad maps save and win an entire series. So you can't be scared of, I guess, to go the traditional sports route, of your number being called. You never know when it's going to be your time to shine. Be ready and be confident. Trust your teammates to step into the big plays that you need to, because they could define a series.
I mean, yeah, and you know, it's always hard to stray away from talking about the two big slaying performances from a map number one going into an S&D, and that providing a catalyst for your roster going forward. Overall, you know, when I look at Shane Thor, again, you know, maybe it didn't lead to objective time, but those kills are going to be substantial when we're talking about an S&D performance, because when he's winning those one-on-one engagements and those gunfights are going his way, that's going to bode well for an S&D performance, opposed to maybe a hard point where that might not equate to some hill time, but in S&D, it's absolutely going to equate to a man advantage, or just making things a bit easier for yourselves in a round. Same thing can be said about Jet, though, on the opposition, because Jet played an extremely crucial role inside of map number one of being able to shut down Shane Thor and a few other key players who were trying to get hot halfway through the game, and it just kind of took them out of the equation after we were done with that first set of rotations. Michigan State started to bring it back, and then boom, bada boom, led to things at the end where Michigan State take map number one. So we get to the S&D. A push on the offensive side for Cornell. The sniper going to be out for Shane Thor, something we come to see and love out of him in S&D performances. Lonely Doc will open things up with the first blood here in the round, and now it's Michigan State's turn to go ahead and try to equalize things out with the trade.
Ace did get across in the mid-map. It didn't equate to a pick, as Cornell, as you had said, got the first blood, but with how quickly Michigan State was able to be present in the mid-map, I thought that would bode well for them to get an advantage, but it's been Cornell who has capitalized on that. Not only do they clear out the mid-map and gain control there, but they also get the bomb down. A very clean round from Cornell to kick things off, where it didn't look like they had the best positioning around the map. They were able to capitalize quickly, fly through with aggression, and catch these players off guard.
Like I said, that's what Shane Thor does in Search and Destroy. You know, he doesn't get that first kill with the sniper, but is able to push up the map after he picks up the dropped automaton when his teammate was able to find that first blood over towards the outer portion of A. One thing leads to another. He finds 3 kills in the round, and now all of a sudden Cornell have a 1-0 lead over Michigan State on an offensive push. So that right there is exactly why I take Shane Thor's presence on the map into a vast amount of accountability. And that's exactly why Cornell could absolutely win this S&D just based off of slaying alone. That's a big kill, though, because Mikey shuts down Shane Thor, the man who's getting high praise and love from myself, and now it's a 3 versus 3 with a trade from Val.
And that alternate route that the two Michigan State players ran to go through Fountain into mid-map just gave a different angle and allowed them to get the first blood. I love the route that was taken. Sinjet's able to try to find the other, trying to sneak through fire. Now they have the man advantage, a 3v1 as they look to lay this bomb down on A. Lonely Doc has his work cut out for him, but Michigan State have played this offensive round very well in response.
1 versus 3 opportunity here from Lonely Doc. At the top of the broken house. You look around towards the bottom of the middle map, and you're going to get some bad timing because player number 8's right behind you in the middle map. And L, Cardiac turns around, finds the kill and the pickup. That's going to give Michigan State their first offensive round win on the board. So we handshake those offenses, go back and back, and now it's going to be the opposition for Cornell with the opportunity to see what they could do maybe a bit differently or just pound it home the same here inside the third round of the S&D.
Their Cornell offensive round opened up with first bloods that in turn granted the mid-map lane being open, and Shane Thor taking advantage of that and pushing out with aggression. We'll look to see, as you said, if they try to play the same way or if they look to make a switch up here with it going this 4-hit towards mid-map, and that definitely leaning A side. It looks to be a standard hit. Playing a bit more reserved, though, and not giving any information to Michigan State players yet. That allows Ace to get all the way through in the mid-map. An unlucky grenade connects, but whenever you give up that much of the map, expect Michigan State to take advantage of it.
Good toss. You knock Shane Thor off the board again. So after 3 kills in the first round, the last 2, Shane Thor has not been any sort of influence on the map. Cardiac will find kill number 4 on the streak that he is working on currently. Val looking out towards that last left side. Going to be able to pepper up Sinjep, but that allows Mikey to come through on a trade. If you're going to finish that kill, it's got to be quickly because you know another Michigan State player is going to be there for a trade opportunity. And the thing about that, Cash, is that is what I want to see out of Michigan State going forward. And as the last player falls, that's big. But, you know, to just kind of finish my point there, what I want to see from Michigan State is that team playing ability and the chemistry that they can start to kind of maneuver with going into playoffs. Because if you're able to go ahead and say, hey, there's somebody on that, and you can make that immediate flank around the back, pick that player off, and keep numbers in your favor, that is huge.
And that's exactly what it looks like they're doing. Cornell left the mid-map open, and Michigan State capitalized on it, but that has to be through clean comms, like, hey, I'm through, okay, I've got someone here. And yeah, for Michigan State, it has been a very team-based play from them in and around the hard point. That's what got them back in it and got them the win. And here, they're looking very decisive in the S&D as well. As we see an all-out 4-man hit going to be Cornell, they're going to have a thing coming in for them as players have yet to make the read.
Got to be careful, though, if you are Michigan State, because if you don't clear out radio, if you go to plant that bomb a little bit too early, it might spill trouble for you. However, on the backside, you got to look to Shane Thor now. With Lonely Doc making the pinch play, you're going to be able to make things a 3 versus 3. 45 seconds left. Unfortunate team kill there from Payne. He wasn't slaying all that well in map number 1, and unfortunately getting a team kill is not going to help that number go up any further from the donut watch that you're currently on. Will fall to the hands of one Lonely Doc around the back in a 1 versus 3 attempt. Ace, Cardiac, the last 2 Michigan State players that you have to get through, and of course that bomb defusal as well. And this might be the perfect opportunity. The first one's going to be their trade instantaneously, isn't even needed. Michigan State will take their round win, and that's 3 straight for the Spartans.
You set that up perfectly. You have to kind of pause and play that B site a bit more patiently. You have to get the clearance out of radio. Fortunately for Michigan State, the player flew out and landed right in their lap on Plat and P5, so that had their work cut out for him, but they didn't instantly just go blindly tunnel vision and plant the bomb at B. They knew what they needed to do. They worked the site, won the gunfights, and got the openings, putting Cornell in a bind. They find themselves up 3-1, and again, that's behind just very decisive decisions coming from this Spartan squad.
Lonely Doc might get some good timing here, but Ace just sitting in that left corner. You got to be able to check it. You do. Unfortunately, though, Ace is going to be able to drop one before you can find yourselves a trade. So a round that you basically need here not to go down 4-1. Doesn't start off great. However, you still have the bomb in your possession. Val and Thor, the last 2 alive. You can make your way all the way around the back, try to play a pick. But all 3 Michigan State players in the church is going to be a difficult gunfight to win. And of course, you still got to get the bomb down. Val gets timing through everybody. Turns around onto 1, gets traded out. Now it's Thor in a 1 versus 2. And you should know where those last 2 players are. That would be a free plan today.
We were 15 seconds into the round, and 2 Michigan State players were already running a route through P3 and Fire. I mean, the quickness with which Michigan State is moving around the map has set them up for success on these defensive rounds. They gave themselves the life advantage early because Cornell isn't watching the mid-map as 2 players line up, and Shane Thor cuts them down. Where I was just commenting on Cornell giving up the mid-map, Shane Thor says, that doesn't matter too much. We're just going to get this one taken care of, clutches up the 1v2, and well, only a fashion that Shane Thor can.
No, Cash, the weird thing is like Michigan State, they stayed over like in their back left hand side of spawn for a considerable amount of time there. I'm not sure if they thought that like maybe the bomb was down there from the player that they killed, but like once that bomb went down, they made the right play to be able to go together and then push through the church and maybe catch Shane Thor off, because, you know, the most likely spot that he's going to be is inside of the church after the round and the plant comes through. But you can't get peace like that. Shane Thor is that guy. Mr. COD agent, once again, giving his team the boost that they need to be able to get things going in the S&D. It's a 6-2 start, 3 in a row. Playing inside of the middle U right now. You've already got to pick off the board. You're looking to tie things up at 3-3. That was one of the biggest plays that you needed for the search and destroy to keep going your way.
Nearly every round that a team has won the mid-map, they have won the round, whether that's been offense or defense. And, of course, that's so important. But Tuscan especially, it seems like it's just such an extended and more raised type of importance for the mid-map control. That just grants you, rotations throughout the map. It gives you more lanes to contest. And as we saw there, Shane got to the opponent got the first blood and was rewarded for the aggression. Now pinned in this top corner of the map is Michigan State, and with less than 30 seconds left and no bomb in their hands, they've got to try to make a big play here.
Nice little jump across is going to allow 2 players from Michigan State to make their push out. Everybody over towards this A site is huge. Lonely Doc at the top, though. Nade is going to fall over the top, cut one off, and find the stun. However, you sprint out that doorway, you're not going to expect somebody to be holding the pre-aim there. And as you win one round and maybe get some momentum back on your side, Michigan State will answer instantaneously after that fact and continue to hold that 2-round barrier that they had earlier on the game on you.
Great adjustment. They were put in a bind, and whenever they made a decision, all three players executed and didn't hesitate. They won the gunfights and got the bomb down, though that didn't end up coming into effect. It's the point of whenever they made a decision, every player rolled with it, and that's exactly what's been paying off for them here in the search and destroy. Now we see more aggression out of 2 players from Michigan State in the mid-map. Once again, they are through to L, and this could spell danger for Cornell Big Red.
You know, I was looking at the scoreboard there, and then in my ear from production in the background, all I just hear is 31 damage. And it just made that statistic even funnier for me. And, you know, you hate to single things out on one player, but 31 damage in a search and destroy is not going to bode well, especially in an 0-6 stat line, but there's plenty of S&D left. And as Cash was saying earlier, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Right now, though, the finish simply isn't there. Michigan State are the ones who hold the wheel within their hands. Jesus has took the wheel for them, and they're driving off into the sunset.
Cornell
Easter,
on offense, the adjustment, and they have to make it now given that we're at match point, but they have to pick up that mid-map lane. Every time on their offensive attacks, they've left it open, and almost every time they've been punished for it. I'm shocked that we are in our 8th round, and on offense, they have yet to pick that up. Of course, the same can be said for Michigan State. Neither team on their offenses are cleanly picking up the mid-map, or at least Michigan State, they're able to contest it, maybe just losing the first blood gunfight, but Cornell has to make that adjustment if they can push this back to another round. They're going to have to if they want to stay alive, and Shane Thor getting the first blood in mid-map area is definitely going to help.
Through the middle. Slow crouch around the corner. Advantage to Cornell after 2 kills go their way. Payne will finally get himself on the board. Went from having a donut to finding himself at the Olive Garden. Sinjet comes around the corner, able to take off Payne on the map. 1 versus 3 it would have to be. You read the flank perfectly. You're going to be able to find the shots with a pistol. Unfortunately, can't walk away with the kill. So although you're at match point now, Michigan State, you just got to find a way to close out the S&D here. You don't want to allow Cornell to start making their way back in the S&D. It's only 1 round, so not to fret, but it's just something that you have to use as a precursor to close your games out. Could be a reason why they only have 3 wins in the year in Search and Destroy.
Yeah, you just can't. When you have a team on the ropes like this, you've got to find a way to close the map out. I mean, solid performances all around from the Michigan State squad. Of course, Ace not having the best of performances, but still making his presence felt in and around the map. Once again, Cornell sitting very deep, and not only in their spawn, but on this top portion of the map. 2 players, once again, from Michigan State in the mid-map and through fire already. So what's looking to be a quick A plant for the Cornell squad, Michigan State are in their side of mid-map, and gonna start making noise as Mikey is in top fire.
Slowly in you, trying to work a pick here if you're Cornell. Doesn't realize that the player's in the corner. You look to Mike, he's all the way in the top. Somehow Shane is able to stay alive. Only with 9 HP. Now it's going to be Ace who pushes on in. Sinjet is there. Thor for a trade. 2-2. We go back and forth for both teams. So now it's Mikey once again. Look, I love this play from Pate, man. This guy is just, it's admirable to say the very least. It's like a general all the way in the back lines. You know, you got to keep your general alive. He's the in-game manager for this Cornell roster. Now he's finally going to make his dastardly push around the map. Starts making his way forward. It's a crazy march. You can start hearing the little drummer boy in the background starting to make his call now. And as you grab the bomb, you're going to have to work this over towards A. There's simply not enough time to get back across the B. Might be some bad timing here as Mikey is going to be the first one to push on out. He's just watching for the middle map. Payne, you got to pop up. You got to look for the player. Unfortunately, you get caught out from behind. The MP40 shots are going to be there. In Michigan State, Defiant as such, will win their 4th Search and Destroy on the year and take a 2-0 series lead over the Cornell Big Red.
A Search and Destroy that looks like they played much better than the few wins that they have on the season. If you want to be showing upward trajectory in a mode, it's going to be now. I think a fairly decisive Search and Destroy from them. Was it perfect? Not by any stretch, but they were taking what was being given to them around the map, whether that be the mid-map cut, whenever they made the 4 hit towards B, whatever lane was open, they were contesting that and winning the gunfights, catching Cornell off guard. So they were just making great reads around the map, and again, working as a team. You said Cornell needed to do that a bit more after the hard point.
Sure.
They don't do that. They end up bottling up and playing a little bit timid, it looked, after a few rounds started to slip away from them. So very decisive, though 6-3 S&D out of Michigan State. They find themselves up 2-0 in the series, going back into another respawn. You got to feel confident that they can close it out here. But again, still enough COD left. So long as someone's not to 3 yet, anything can happen.
Take a look at the statistics once more for the search and destroy. Nothing glaringly negative on the side of Michigan State. Yeah, maybe a 3-7 performance there from Ace, but he was a big part of that closeout round, being able to find trades for his teammates throughout the end of that ninth and final round of search and destroy. They've got a 2-0 lead, so I don't really have anything negative to say about Michigan State. The only thing that I'd like to see for them going forward is to continue playing the same way that they were inside of the S&D. They played together. They had a lot of great moments as a collective roster, and it was a lot of fun to watch them, and I hope that is going to be a catalyst for what gets them going in S&Ds later on in the year and gives them confidence going forward. But for Cornell, on the flip side, obviously, you know, from Lonely Doc and Shane Thor, you have 2 good, solid S&D performances, but then you look down the line, and again, I hate to keep putting one player down in a negative kind of connotation, but you know, at 1-8, after having a pretty negative performance instead of the hard point, you just have to be prepared in a map number 3 to have your biggest performance of the series yet, and more importantly, you've got to be the one who's going to push the agenda on the objective, because that's going to have to be your job if you're not going to be able to help out the team in slaying all that much. So, you know, again, Cash, this could be the last hurrah here for Shane Thor and Lonely Doc, players who have been inside of the CCL since Season 0, since the inception of collegiate Call of Duty, and it all comes down to a Tuscan control and whether or not they can keep this series alive.
They've definitely been playing their roles to the best of their ability and doing their part. Like you had said, some slower performances from teammates have, of course, not helped in that kind of sense, but definitely something that can be turned around. This is one of those morale moments where you kind of get the team together and say, hey, we don't want to go out like this. You know, we want to really be fighting every single map in mode, which they have. I mean, given how close these score lines have been, they have been fighting. But here, everything's on the line. You have to reverse sweep to take the series just to stay alive in the LCQ. You know, Shane Thor and Lonely Doc are going to be trying to gas the team up and just get things going. They don't want to go out here. But again, Michigan State playing very well. Cornell, they're just going to try to rally in a big way here, and it has to start on the Tuscan control.
You know, I hate to go back to the statistics here, Cash, but, you know, when we talked about map number 1, it was like, okay, Michigan State's favored here because of their record overall comparatively to Cornell's. Now for the opposition, though, it's the same thing here inside of control. It's a 7-7 record for Michigan State compared to a 3-5 record of Cornell. And on a map like Tuscan, where Michigan State were just able to win that search and destroy, you feel confident going back to the same map, albeit it's a respawn. It's still going to be a familiar setting. And when you have the taste of victory in your mouth and you're so close to being able to move on to the next round where you'll play JWU if you can win one more map instead of this best-of-5 series, hell, you're ecstatic right now. I just need to see Michigan State close this series out like they did the S&D, and it just be that huge resurgence for your entire season. Like, again, like this isn't a lost season for Michigan State. Just because you were in Tier 3 doesn't mean you haven't made the necessary adjustments to be a team of caliber that can place top 64 and make playoffs in the CCL. Yeah, sure, you got to get through first Cornell before the series is over, then JWU, and then Fanshawe Fuel. But it's doable. And I saw that in the search and destroy there.
Most definitely. And already, like you said, even if they somehow, lose this series tonight for it being a first-year squad, as you kind of touched on at the top of show, this is a squad, I mean, I'll even speak for myself, but I think I speak for several other teams where it's like, oh, this is their first year. Yeah, someone to keep an eye on regardless of how they finish the rest of the season. I feel like everything after this is a cherry on top. And so if they can close it out here, like you said, that can show growth and resilience in the squad, where in the search and destroy, we had question marks surrounding, okay, you have a few wins. Obviously, teams can find a way if you are up to come back, or you just can't get a grip on the map to kick things off. They show in a 6-3 fashion that they can take care of business. You need that same kind of teamwork and coordination and control just as much as Surge. Michigan State, if they can do it here, they can win in the dominant fashion and really start to make waves here for LCQ.
First kill went to the side of Cornell, but it is going to be Shane Thor who goes ahead and finds 2, make it 3 back on the point. That's what Shane Thor provides right there. That is COD Asian guy himself. That's him. He's that guy. Everybody loves Shane Thor.
And sometimes a big play like that can just, that's the big play we're talking about, that can just completely spark momentum in a squad and kind of get everyone rowdy and yelling, you know. Again, we'll see how this ends up panning out, but whenever you have players making plays like that on the map, you can't help but want to get on board and get excited around that energy. So for Cornell, you open up this control with a big play. You've got to find a way to hold on the rest of the map, as Michigan State, you know, are going to respond. Cornell need to get up in these lanes and begin contesting so it is not a seamless transition over to B, but the guns are hot, you know. It's just a matter of, can you string together coordination and clean comms to hold this Michigan State squad off?
Well, you got a wipe, and that's great, but now Michigan State have completed that A zone completely. You're now working your way back over towards B. You're already able to get onto the point. Sure, Val and Thor are going to be able to be there for trades, but now Cardiac is still going to be able to stay alive. So really all you're trying to do here is just win a few gunfights from the front, get that first bit of progress on A. Payne will have a nice nade over the top, though, but it is Shane Thor at 7-2 on a 3 spree, looking for even more players to make their way up the map. Michigan State have started to infest the church like rats. They can start pushing their way out over towards that B site in the platform, but you're going to have to get all the way back around through the back here. And Mikey unfortunately loses a 1-versus-1 to Payne, who has the automaton in the back.
Sinjet is still alive at plat for the time being, but Val shoots him in the side and wipes him off, so it is back to square one. Cornell starting to flood out and beyond this point. They're contesting in the mid-map, which is slowing down this Michigan State push, and now Michigan State have to decide what lane they'd like to push through next, given that players off spawn are coming on the top side. They're going to have a look here at another P4 and Church hit, but are Cornell going to be ready for it? The answer is maybe, as players are now making adjustments and rotating over, but 3 players are now here in Church and Alley.
Val's going to get some unfortunate timing, and Ace will be able to find him from the back. Payne all the way in the spawn, trying to hold a potential angle, is going to get cut down by Cardiac. Now it's just going to be up to Lonely Doc and Shane Thor back over towards the point. Mikey from behind, though, is going to be able to catch one off guard. Thor all the way on the top of the platform. Going to be able to find the first. You try to jump down back over to the staircase. Hey, Mikey, we'll see you back on the respawn block. Cardiac, who's in the backside spawn, trying to be the heart stopper here for Cornell. You got to make it quick, though, because Lonely Doc is still being able to slay out around the rest of the church. You're basically a sitting duck here, just trying to whittle down a few of the lives. But unfortunately, with 40 seconds left and only 7 lives remaining here for Michigan State, you're climbing an uphill battle, and you're not Miley Cyrus.
Love that. I need a moment to... that was so wonderful. But yeah, it really is an uphill battle where... you've got to find kills. They've tried to push through this top lane, and they haven't found success. Now you get clearance through P5 and plat, and it's suddenly a 3-stack on the hill. Cornell have to rotate over quickly from the play where they thought was coming from P4. Michigan State make a great read and are now finding success in and around the site. 3-for-1 trade. Stack beginning to come in, but players end up falling, so it is just Cardiac left trying to buy time and ends up finding 2 more players flooding the site, but you've got to hop on. You've got to get on.
Not another crazy Tuscan offensive finish and control. My heart can't take it anymore. Cornell, 3 players left alive. Michigan State back over towards the point. 2 good nades are going to be over the top. But here comes Val. It's a 1-versus-1 in top radio. And all of a sudden, everybody dies, but not the gunfights. It's just straight nades that were tossed into the hill. Like, I've personally never seen that before. I'm quite okay with that. That's a good ending. Storybook kind of stuff. You know, look, both teams are looking for a Cinderella story, so I might as well a little bit to write about.
I mean, a couple Hail Marys and a couple prayers sent on those. I mean, to go 3 for 3 with the grenades, yeah, not a bad way to recuperate on a defensive round that was looking a little bit dire there towards the end. Michigan State try their best to get it done with a pick or 2 of B and already getting the wipe on A, but Cornell, their eyes are set over at this B site. Gonna try to get some early progression and cut some of the hard work out early for them here. But as that's going on, Michigan State are clearing everything out around the map and about to collapse on the hill.
Well, Doc was looking up towards top radio, but you still got to be careful because now the flank is coming in for Michigan State. They're not sending anybody through their spawn side. They're just trying to take the high ground and run away with it. Ace will be able to find the first one with a nade. Sinjet now with a pistol, make that 2. Shane Thor will fall to the hands of Sinjet. And now you look back to the point where Lonely Doc is going to be the only one here on the offensive push. But Cash, the big thing is they've got that first tick of progress over at B. And now Cardiac is the first one back over and rotated towards A. But they're going to send everybody here on offense to try and go ahead and add an extra minute to the clock.
That take of progression is huge, and only 1 player after Sinjet had fallen was able to get to the site, so they didn't have a full set of teammates for Michigan State. That gets 2 ticks of progression in for Cornell over at the A site. Their hard work is cut out for them. Can they close out and get the rest of this A site and have over 2 minutes left? We will find out, but they're once again setting their eyes on B and trying to sneak in another quick pick of progression. Mikey is here on the read, though. Little does he know one more player is there, but the trades come in cleanly for Michigan State. Still playing around the map very well. Player 2 and Sinja just trying to cut these players off, making a rotation back to A. Able to do just that. Cornell, you've got to make a decision. Can you close out the rest of this A take before Michigan State try to, or decide to maybe give one last collapse?
I love the resilience here for Michigan State because you've been ping-ponged across the map. Cornell has tried hits at A, they've tried hits at B, and they've sent you on the defensive side to both points multiple times already. Guess what? That doesn't matter because Michigan State are still slaying out. They've got an 8-life advantage, and with only 40 seconds left, and you still have yet to get either A or B. If this goes down to a round 5, which, hey, Control usually does, what ends up happening? Well, of course, the ticks are going to come into progression. That's going to depend on who's going to get the final defensive side. So, Cardiac for Michigan State, in through you, tries to go ahead and snap around to the right side with the pistol. Sure, you've still got a couple Cornell players trying to get back over towards the 8-point, but you know, sure, you had an extra minute onto the clock, but you've only got 2 respawns rough before everybody's just wiped off the board.
Michigan State took advantage of that situation. It came down to time, as you were saying. You ping-pong them back and forth, and you comment on how well Michigan State was able to handle all of those transitions. But for Cornell, it came down to time and having to make a decision and get on a point. You tried to send one more person through P5. They got cut down. Now for A, you had to send players at it. That ends up making the life situation that much more dire. Michigan State up 10 lives, and sure, you ended up getting another minute on the clock, but you ended up costing so many lives trying to play that back and forth game with Michigan State and costed yourself an offensive round, but you did get a take at B, so it wasn't all for nothing, I guess is the moral of the story.
Well, Payne at 6 and 15, left in a 1 versus 11, and still across the map in a spawn. I'm thinking maybe he's looking for a way to get across the map, maybe just take some kills off the board right now. You know, if you recall all the way back to that search and destroy, this is the
Eerily
fateful and famous position that Payne was in beforehand. If you ever want to know where that player is going to be on the map, all you have to do is go to the very specific spawn side on the offensive side and just look for the player proning all the way in the back. Because I promise you, 9 times out of 10, Payne is going to be there. He's a bear during hibernation. That's his little home, and he loves it. Nobody's going to be able to tell him not to go there because he's his own person. He can make his own decisions, and, well, that's let him at 6 and 16.
And for Michigan State, they just did a great job on that defensive round, not only responding, but as you said, and I can't shape it up much better, they were slung back and forth across the map, having to rotate back and forth, still made Cornell go down to the wire on even getting this A site. So great work from them now on offense. Can they replicate the same kind of success? And not only that, but build upon it here on their second offense. Payne denies the entry to Church to kick things off and haven't stepped even a toe on this A site. The Spartans have not. But for Cornell, they have a really set back line. The zone is for Michigan State to take. Can they jump on it? It is a question because Cornell, well, they're playing very passive.
Shane Thor with 25, now make it 26. You snap back over for 4 in a row. And knock the progress off the Michigan State had got themselves. Cardiac will slide off and around the right side corner. Unfortunately, though, you're going right into the jaws of the Titan that is Shane Thor. Played himself up. Wait for the re-challenge. Continue to knock that zone all the way back down to 0 ticks of progression. Nothing on it whatsoever. And now on 5 in a row, he can start making his way up the map. And Mikey doesn't even realize that the flank is going to start coming in here. Payne will knock one down in the middle of the map, though. Payne actually is going to be able to find 2. So that's 4 in a row from Payne. If Payne got streaks, that would be like the end-all be-all inside of this series. That would be like the greatest moment in human history. That's like rivaling the upset of the 16 seed beating the 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
It's the big play that we talked about. Who is willing to step up and make the necessary play to really sling the team on your shoulder and say, all right, let's carry us to that finish line now. That finish line for Cornell is going to be staying alive in the series. But Payne finding kills like that in the mid-map is definitely a way to get it done. You know Thor's also going to take care of business and then wherever he is. But Michigan State now having their hand forced. Cornell knows they all have to flood onto this A site. No time to really look around off spawn. That allows Lonely Doc to get through. Gonna shoot a player in the back. And now, being down 16 lives, Michigan State, they just weren't able to get on a site. They didn't make a decision in time to do anything. And that let Cornell make an easy read now that there is no time left. So, no A progression for Michigan State unless they're able to pull off something here. All 4 players stacked. And Cornell gonna look to give it up. So as I say that, they do get it captured. much dire situation turned into something maybe a bit more profitable with 60 seconds on the clock.
That was big for Michigan State because without that, you really don't have a tick of progress at all for this offensive round. So this does go down to a round number 5 situation where you're going to be forced to have the defensive side or the offensive side. You want to have as many ticks of progression as you possibly can. 3 versus 16, though. Fortunately, it's not going to be all that much of an easy victory here, especially since you're trying to get over towards that B zone. Basically, right now, you're just playing to take maybe a couple players off streaks, maybe start your own little bit of progress towards some streaks. But yeah, other than that, Cornell's going to be able to win that one pretty handily. That comes on the backhand of great slaying. And, you know, one of the things is, like, Cardiac had a great start to this game. I believe it was somewhere like it was at least like maybe I think it was 12 to 13 kills in that first round that he had by himself. And then after the fact, it's just kind of been a slow progression towards a few more kills round over round. And that's allowed Cornell to really take a step in the right direction. Of course, that comes at the behest of Shane Thor having 36 for his team. But at the same time, you know, you would like to see a couple more players maybe start to get hot here towards the later rounds of the of the control for Michigan State.
You would like to, but even then, these aren't awful performances coming in from them. And I know that's not even what you were saying in its entirety. Of course, Thor having 37 kills does make a difference, but for me, it's less the slaying and more so the decision-making for Michigan State. They have found the most success on the B site. Cornell, it was that quick hit, but after that, they weren't able to get back to be on their offense. So they have found a bit more success and are up 1 tick if this goes to round number 5, but for Cornell, once again, it's those kills that have to turn into ticks and turn into more presence around the map, not just empty kills like we had seen in the hard point. This has to equate to objective time. Michigan State, when they clamp down, as Mikey does it, and pops 3 over at Tree, Cornell has to find a way to translate all of these kills into ticks of progress.
I mean, Cash, I get its defense, right? But for whatever reason, Michigan State all of a sudden just gets going across the map when they're able to start pushing in towards that spawn side, and it just makes the map so much easier for them. Although I will say this, Sinjet at 5 in a row, you're looking for potentially even more streaks here for Michigan State. You saw them use a streak already. I believe it was Mikey who dropped the glide bomb over towards that B zone. And now on defense, when you're just holding back these players, having streaks for later on in the game, whether that be an offense or a defensive round, is going to be so big. And as you find the off-screen engagement, you're going to be able to get 2 in a row for 7. That was the longest gunfight that I've seen in quite some time. But Ace will walk away with the kill. Sinjet's still pushing in the spawn. For 8, almost gets 9. Stops shooting at the last second. But a train comes in after the fact. And that's going to allow Michigan State to not only have themselves a lead still, but continuously slay out. Cornell hasn't gotten a tick in this round yet.
On the defensive side, teams have forced the hand of the opponent. The offensive have just tried to go for B a bit too much, and then they put themselves in a bind that makes it such an easy read on the other team. On defense, to get around the map, you know what lanes you have to lock down, and you can just channel these players through this top side. That allows you to get in their L, start shooting players in the back off spawn. Whenever you don't have time on your side and you waste as much of the clock, it just makes it so easy for the other team to capitalize. This should be going to a round number 5 for Michigan State, unless Cornell can pull off a miracle play and also capture B where they haven't found success.
I was going to say, you cannot let them capture that last tick, because that 1 tick could have very well decided the outcome of this game, and that could have allowed Cornell to get back into the series. All of a sudden find themselves on the board with a 1-2 deficit, sure, but force a map number 4, get hot in a respawn, and then go to a map number 5 in an S&D. You know, it remains to be seen who's going to get the offense and the defense here, but it is going to be Michigan State who walk away with the defense, and they have looked so good so far. So what was Cornell's big opportunity to get themselves their first win in this series, stay alive, and prolong Lonely Doc and Shane Thor's potential final hurrah on the CCL is falling short. Shane Thor's going for 50 here in map number 3. We'll see if he can get it done here. 2-2 split back and forth. It's Cornell starting to make their way and presence felt up the map.
Shane Thor trying to pave the way in aggression, and yeah, going for 50. It has not translated to an offensive round win, let alone all that much at B. They're gonna have to do it here if they want to extend this series. And as you said, keep Shane Thor and Lonely Doc playing in the CCL for that much longer. A couple players now on this A site trying to get it captured. Shane Thor winning the gunfights as well, but the map presence is still in the hands of Michigan State. You have to get them out of your spawn. They've been running these routes the entire map. Players are cutting you down and making it that much harder for you to even get over to this A site. That gives them a life advantage. It just is a compounding thing that until you can really find them on the flank and give yourselves more map presence, it's going to be an uphill battle for Cornell that they're going to struggle to fight and win at that.
Shane Thor making his way up the map. 5 kills to get to 50. You spot 2 players there. You're going to wrap back to the rest of your teammates, and now into the middle of the map. Only a 1 life deficit for the side of Cornell, and Lonely Doc's found his way all the way around through the back. You're going to be able to find 2, now make it 3. Tries to go for the 4th, but Ace will shut that down inside of the church. And now Shane Thor is pushed all the way into the spawn side of Michigan State. You're going to spot one out the back there. Casually working your way around. Mikey will cut you down from behind. That's going to even things out at 17 apiece. A minute 35 left in the round. Cornell is still making their big frontward assault over towards B.
Cornell Big Red have committed the resources, or at least for this next push, and in through P5. They've got to win a few more gunfights to try to get through, but it's Ace who could play spoiler here as he pops out radio and has the potential to jump on this hill and cut down a couple more players. Looks to do just that, but damage control at least taken care of. Only a couple more players in and around the site that you have to worry about, but we see player 2 and Senja already cut off for another hit. Coming through roof side, that is not going to be the case. Cornell, they're going to try to push through P4 here. Reads and rotations are being made in and around the map for Michigan State. They're adjusting wonderfully, but coming down to lives, I mean, this is going to be very close. Cornell are putting up a great fight here.
50 for Shane Thor. 30 deaths to go along with it, but it's been a great slaying game here for Cornell. 1 life separates the teams from behind. Michigan State will clear the point, and with a minute left, Cornell once again has to get all the way across the map and get onto that B site in order to win this game and send things to a map number 4. Cardiac and Ace, though, they'll be there. But look at Shane Thor. He's got a flank off screen. He's going to be able to win the first gunfight. Sinjet in the middle will shut that down. All it is in the back line is Shane Thor. You look to the second, you're going to be able to find Ace. Now up and towards the top of the platform, you spotted the player out. You're going to be able to play Ring Around the Rosie for just a second. Now be able to push all the way back to the rest of your teammates. But Mikey's just laying down looking to the spawn side. They actually don't know that Shane Thor's pushed back to the patio side. So now if you're playing the top platform, you can start making your way back over towards the point. Shane Thor in the back, going to be able to work around and find yet another kill. Lonely Doc is there. The 2 veterans trying to save Cornell's season, keep them alive here in map number 3. You look to the back. Cardiac is going to fall to the hands of Shane Thor. 4 in a row, 54 kills, 4 versus 3 back on the point. The defensive side for Michigan State has to combat this because they're about to jump onto the point. 10 seconds left. 2 players in. Payne Val stacking. Shane Thor up and towards the top. And you see player number 7 and Lonely Doc just trying to look to the radio side. 1 versus 4. Sinjet, you can try to pull it off here. Val around the corner. First shots are going to be good. Now you got to get onto the point. They'll keep them alive. Shane Thor will not go out without a fight. A 3-2 win in the control gives Cornell their first map of the series and forces us to a Tuscan hardpoint in a map number 4.
If Cornell take this series, this is the moment we're going to look back on and say that was the catalyst that got the ball rolling. Sometimes you do have to do it all for your squad. A couple of other, performances, Lonely Doc starting to catch fire there in that round number 5, but I guess you can look back at the control and say, okay, you had Payne finding those kills in succession, multi-kills in the middle of the map there early on. It was a team effort collectively, but Shane Thor does enough and then some, and if that doesn't spark a fire under your team for the rest of this series, I'm not sure what will. Like you said, Shane Thor not going out quietly and wants to extend this to a game number 5. Michigan State just unable to hold on there.
55 and 30 for Shane Thor. I was talking to Marco before this happened, Cash as well, and one of the conversational points that was brought up was like, Shane Thor and Cornell, they might not win this series against Michigan State, but you can guarantee that in the final outing, Shane Thor and Lonely Doc are going to have themselves a phenomenal series, and they're going to just try their absolute hardest to put up numbers and entertain as they always have since season 0 of the CCL. So it's been a long time coming, and it's a sad sight to see them potentially leaving the CCL after they go ahead and are done with their collegiate opportunities and experiences. However, it's not done just yet. We will have to see a map number 4. So with that being said, we're going to send things to a short break. When we come back from that, it'll potentially be Michigan State moving on or Cornell forcing a map number 5. You're not going to want to miss it. I promise you it's going to be a barn burner from here on out. My name is McCormiel. With me is Cash. We'll be back after a short break. A typical performance from Shane Thor allows Cornell to take their first map of the series. It was a wild control that went 5 rounds. Who would have guessed it? But my name is McCormiel. With me is Cash, and we have at least one more guaranteed map, a Tuscan hardpoint, to get over with before this series is done and settled. We could even see a Berlin search and destroy to end out on map number 5 if Cornell are able to start once again back that reverse sweep that they're already on. They're walking the trail. Once again, it's going to be a tall order, but if there's anyone that can get it done, it's Mr. COD Agent. So After 3 maps, Cash, we've had our fair share of great moments. Just in your own opinion, what was kind of the difference maker for Cornell in that last map? Maybe aside from the 55 kills.
Yeah, apart from the 55 kills, Cornell just started throwing different looks. We had seen them on their defensive approaches get aggressive in and through the mid-map and really play a little bit of TDM, force Michigan State to have to earn any real estate on the map. And in turn, by the time Michigan State had tried to get on A or make any kind of progression, even if they were able to get the A site, it cut them down to having a 10 life deficit. So they did a lot of the hard work early, even on their offense, getting that one ticket B. I'm sure it warranted an offense for them in round number 5, but for Cornell, they were able to get the hard work done early, and as you have been alluding to this entire series, they were able to close it out as well and afford themselves a map win.
Hard point. A map that everybody knows and loves, but here on a map of Tuscan, we see it now for the 3rd straight time in this series. It was a Michigan State S&D win, then a Cornell Esports Control win. Now, of course, we have our 3rd and final map, or rather mode, that will be on the map of Tuscan. Will Michigan State be able to close out a series? Will Cornell Esports take themselves to a map number 5 and get back to Berlin, where the series all started? Michigan State was able to take the last hard point. Cornell looking to reverse their fortunes here in map number 4. We were looking at Shane Thor inside of the control. He's got to be feeling himself right now. He had a Kobe-like performance there in what could have been his final game. Fortunately, though, for him, they will keep on singing here and dancing at the ball. It hasn't struck midnight just yet. Cardiac and Sinja will open up the round there with Payne and Val. And now Mikey gets cut down from behind. That's Lovely Doc, who will find himself 2 in a row. Trades back and forth will leave Shane Thor with the last remaining time in the hill.
For Cornell, you're going to look to get majority of this P1 time. For Michigan State, you're just trying to keep your spawns on the right side of the map towards P2. A win for Michigan State would be clearing Cornell off this, maybe even getting a bit of time, but so long as they have mid-map presence like they do, someone in you and now cutting down players, that's going to be a win. But for Cornell, you've held off any waves of attacks. You've gotten a fairly clean bit of time. You're going to walk away with about 40 seconds here when it's all said and done, but you don't have any eyes on rotation going forward. So for Michigan State, you find yourself in a 40-point hole. But as you look ahead, you have players already pre-aimed looking down lanes, set up well for P2.
Similar to what we saw on the performance from map number 1, but Mikey gets some great timing there. Beautiful trigger discipline is going to be able to let him find one. Now from behind, you're going to be able to find Val up and towards the top of the radio. You got to be careful because Shane Thor is looking down over the top of an MP40. Readjust, you'll wrap back out. Wait for the rest of your team and the reinforcements to get there so you can go ahead and pinch back towards the point. But this, again, looks very similar to what we saw at the beginning of map number 1. Michigan State this time, they'll actually go ahead and hold on to P2, though.
They are holding on to it, but it's not turning into a ton of time for them. For Cornell, after having nothing on rotation, have been able to contest a clean bit of this to where, worst case scenario, if Michigan State gets the rest of the time cleanly, which they're not looking to, or maybe going to be at a tied-up game. On rotation, once again, Michigan State are ahead, trying to get these players at the top side of the map back to the respawn screen where they're going to have to earn their way back through. A lane opens up at the top for the collapse and the 3v2 on the site, about to go down, but once again is Michigan State here early. Great tack usage from Thor to clear him off the hill.
Now just you wait. If Cornell is able to break in towards this point, I promise you, Payne will find his beautiful spot in the back there. He'll lay down, watch the front. That's a great kill there from Payne. Over the top, allows them to start making their way forward. You get rid of the AR in the back, who can be so oppressive on this hill. Mikey, though, going to be laying down. We'll find one. It helps with Sinjet there. You can start breaking in towards the hill. Shots are nice. Finally, Payne is there and traded out. So it's a 4-to-1 hit for Michigan State that allows them to break back in. It was a little scary there. I thought Cornell might be able to break through the front, but they hold on. They're triumphant, and now you just contest for these last 20 seconds of time.
And for Michigan State, though, you kept spawn control the entirety of P3. You weren't able to get any kind of eyes outside of this backside of the map. You couldn't get fire cleared out, and that's where the last hit came in from Cornell to grant them scrap time and look to extend their lead out once again to about 20 points. But for Cornell, if they want to look to blow their lead out even further, if they can get in here early and get a clean break, keep Michigan State from winning these rotational gunfights, this could allow them to really open up the scoreline. This is how Michigan State clawed their way back in, the Berlin hardpoint that we had seen earlier. They started cleaning and tightening up their gameplay. It's been fairly clean here to start on rotations. They just haven't been able to hold off the guns of Cornell when they look to break in. That's kind of looking to be the case here now, but Mikey finding 2 is definitely going to slow things down.
Val slides in. Somehow is able to escape with his life. I thought Ace was surely going to be able to cut that player down there, but now it's going to be a hit from the front here from Michigan State. 25 seconds left on the hill. You know, I don't know if I love trying to hit this for the last 25 seconds, but then again, it's just a short rotation over towards P5, and you can start getting your way out. Player number 8 in Cardiac is going to be the one who's there, so, I mean, yeah, sure, scrap time's good. Now you force the spawn in the back for Cornell, so overall, I guess I consider that a W.
But for Cornell, you're going to have to look at winning a rotation at some point in this hardpoint if you want to win. Plain and simply, you have had the lead the entire time, but of course the lead change is about to come in. But without winning rotation, Michigan State have been getting 10 to 15 seconds off these hardpoints and having the ability to re-break after Cornell is able to get in. So at some point, Cornell's going to have to be more proactive on the map and look to try to clear out lanes and set their teammates up to get around the site. Michigan State, for the first time, have been able to zone off around this P5 that is rather chaotic and get these players cut down without affording them any time in the hill. It's been clean thus far through 30 seconds. Val, trying to make something happen through stairs.
There's been some wild moments in this game thus far to where I'm just wondering how certain players have been able to escape out of situations with their lives. Cardiac, fortunately enough, will get cut down, so Cornell won't lose all too much time, especially that last crucial 20 seconds that could have been there for Michigan State. As we get back and ready to set up for point number 1 off screen, player number 8 versus player number 1 will be the engagement over towards that next hard point. But for the second set of rotations, this is pretty much as even of a game as you could have hoped for. Cornell just need to come out a bit more pace. I guess I just want to see a little bit more pace out of them because they just seem to be slow to the ball every time, whether it be rotations or just that frontward slang.
Pacing would change this game for them and afford them more of a lead now. They're going to have to close the 10-point deficit, but they got a substantial 40 seconds of time the last go-around on P1. For Michigan State, they didn't afford themselves the opportunity to get into this hill. Shane Thor really opened things up, as we're seeing him continue to do here, a clean 4 down in the feed. Grant themselves P1, but now the difference is when you get the clean kill feed, Thor is able to activate and get to these positions where he can make such an impact on these Spartans players off of spawn that only allows for you to have even cleaner time in the hill. Do they set their eyes on rotation and try to press beyond the 50-yard line of the map and really try to contest this P2? That's what we'll find out. But if they can do that, this can start to get dangerous for Michigan State because they've been getting broken just a bit too easy.
Big Boo pop around the corner for Payne. He's got 9 inside of the hard point thus far. Shane Thor at 20 and 14 leads the way across both teams in terms of top slang. Ace will turn around. Lonely Doc will get the best of him in the one-on-one engagement. Automaton in hand, and now you can start pushing back around through the spawn side. Mikey trying to shut this down will win the one-on-one versus Lonely Doc. Shane Thor will pick up 2 at the exact same time, so you get a double back and forth between both of the teams. 15 seconds off the clock. It was Michigan State who had rotated early, but finally Cornell will find themselves a nice break. They've got themselves the advantage of the hill, and of course now can run up the score and get themselves a bit more of a lead just that much faster.
Cornell holding on to the spawns, but Michigan State holding on to the hill from the front. And as you said, winning and around the site in order to give themselves a lead here and really just playing behind the slang once again of Thor, who is already at 27, Lonely Dog at 15 and 15, the next closest player. But minute 50 of hill time for Val, and that's been a difference maker here. A couple players getting that much closer to 60 seconds of time, if not having crossed it. So you have more focused OBJ play from the Cornell players. We're seeing that difference reflect in the score lines. Thor's going to try to open up P3 with streaks. It's going to be an all-out roof and fire hit from the Big Red.
Cardiac making the push up the map. Automaton will find the first player. Lonely Doc is going to be there for a trade all the way in the back, so you can keep the spawns there if you are Cornell. It's not going to be a fight that you have to have from the north side of the map. We're trying to make their way up all the way into the back. You're going to be able to get to the back. Heglitch here with the MP40 in hand. You get a couple of shots over towards the right. We'll pick off Cardiac on the left and not be able to help out the rest of your teammates who are starting to make that push up. Sinjet, Ace, pair for a couple of kills. More importantly, they pepper up the player in the back, and they finally knock that player down. So Michigan State, they've had to fight this one from the front. Fortunately, though, it's gone all in their favor. They flip the spawns out, and now they can hold on for the last 20 seconds of time. This is big for Michigan State because this should give them the lead, especially since they're not going to have the rotations over towards P4.
And I feel like those last 15 seconds were so telling of Michigan State's comms. They had to fight it from the back, as you were saying. And then the moment they realize Cornell starts spawning out, the ARs flip around and are able to make the reads to secure the rest of the scrap time. Great job from Michigan State for staying composed in this. Now with 2 kills opening up this P4, they're able to get in and get on the site early. This is where we saw Michigan State at this exact point in Berlin. Rebound, bounce back, and start to take a lead. Cornell just starting to collapse, relying a bit too much on Sling.
A difference maker here, though, it was Cornell who got the streak last time. Sinjet just won on 7 in a row and then was now able to find Michigan State some utility to use later on in the game should they need it. Shane Thor will find 2 on 3 in a row. Goes for number 4. Will slide in. Unfortunately, gets cut down, but Cardiac will be traded out immediately after the fact. So this is a big 25 seconds of time here for whichever team it goes to. It could change the trajectory of how this game goes. But remember, the last time we got over towards P5, it was a bloodbath of team kills and trades that went back and forth. Cardiac will be the first one here, but you've got to be careful because Michigan State just let the scrap time go. They have to hold on to the initial time here at P5.
That's the play that must be made if you're going to give up 15 seconds of scrap time at the 200-point mark. You cannot get broken within the first 15 seconds. That's kind of the given of this, but all of the Cornell players are here. Packs are coming in, and they are holding on to the site for the time being. These next 5 seconds could decide the game.
Slides on in. Michael tries to hop out over towards that right side. You're going to be able to pick up the first Lonely Doc there to knock you down after the fact. 1-to-1, back and forth. 3 versus 3 on the point. Reinforcement starting to get here from both teams. Michigan State can have the first one there. An unfortunate team kill will cut down Payne, but Cardiac is still going to be able to survive. Around the right side, Sinjet pulls out the MP40. He's able to find 1 on the Lonely. Thor will now be the second one to funnel on in through the door. Why not give him all 3 and then have Cardiac pick up the last 4? That's 2:15 now to 2:03. Michigan State with the lead. They can't win off of this hard point. It'll be a rotation back for our third set of rotations.
Sinjet has been the X-Factor player for Michigan State this entire series now. On 6, has full streaks as we go back over to P1. Gonna call that in immediately, knowing that they don't have the rotation. What a heads-up play from the player that has been leading for the squad the entire night. Now, just within 15 seconds, Michigan State can close this out and take the series in a 3-1 fashion. They have turned it up to 11 here in this map number 4.
That kill could have very well did it. Streak over the top, gonna cut players off of spawn. Sinjet's gonna be able to find 2. Shane Thor, the last hope, the last bloodline for Cornell to stay alive. Mikey will find the last 2 kills. Michigan State will survive in map number 4. They'll move on and keep their playoff hopes and aspirations alive. And unfortunately for Shane Thor, as well as Lonely Doc, that might have very well been your last series played, but both of them had phenomenal series individually. And it's hard to overlook what Shane Thor was able to do to even keep this series alive. 40-25 there inside of map 4. I said it after map 3, but that was a Kobe-like performance. Even though you don't make the playoffs, you go out a shining star. You hope to see Shane Thor still not only around the community, but the CCL as his home. As it's been a pleasure to watch him over the last 4 to 5 years of collegiate Call of Duty ever since Season 0. And if, again, that is his final match, we wish not only Lonely Doc, but of course Shane Thor as well, nothing but the best.
Absolutely. They provided entertainment from top to bottom in that series and gave us some thrilling moments that will definitely make the highlight reel going forward as well. So just still typical performances from them. They do suffer a 3-1 loss to Michigan State. And really the last couple of hills for Michigan State, again, for them, it wasn't flashy Sling performances. Sinjet had a very solid night. Stat lines through and through as we have a look at this, but it was a collective play from the entire team. Whenever we were at that P5, and I said the next 5 seconds could tell the entire series, Michigan State made the decision to push out of P5 on the platform and start cutting those players down. That allowed them to get these players pushed even further off the hill, start zoning off around it, and kept it less contest heavy. So they made a gutsy decision to push out plat and try to get those kills. It's a high risk, high reward, pays off for them, sets the win condition, and allows them to walk out of here in 4.
You know, map 1, Cornell had the advantage when it came to the slaying numbers, but that completely had flipped around here on map number 4, where Michigan State were able to go ahead, find the slaying numbers in their favor, and once again, it was just that time that was split between every single player on Michigan State inside of the hill that was able to go ahead and contribute to them finding themselves a win, and of course closing this series out against Cornell. So they'll be moving on. They'll play JWU inside of the next round of Group H instead of mid-rest round 1. But again, we'll just take a look at the maps real quick. 2 maps off the rip. It was 250 to 213 in the first hard point. Then it was a 6-3 S&D win in Michigan State's worst game mode. A hero performance from Shane Thor in map 3 keeps the series alive, but ultimately it comes to a close as the Spartans hold on triumphant in map 4. Again, they will be moving on to JWU. If they win that game, they'd have to play Fanshawe Fuel, which would be a very difficult matchup to say the least. But again, after what I've seen today and some of the positives that Michigan State will have going forward, this is a team that could potentially make it into playoffs, even though they were sitting around the mid to upper section of Tier 3.
This is a team I could very well see in playoffs against Senjet. If we were to do a layover of every map in this series, it was definitely positive throughout the entire series, but also playing so well around the objective. Just that all-around team player brought everyone else on board. Very just solid numbers from the squad. Whenever you're playing against a team who has 1 or 2 superstars that show out, you can mute or at least suppress their impact by having all 4 players having more balance. Tonight, Michigan State brought that to the table, and that's what you need to find success against higher caliber teams as they move forward in their LCQ, and hopefully for them, a playoff play. But a great night and a great showing from them. Sure. And for Cornell, again, a wonderful night. This was a very entertaining series to kick off the night. We had some wonderful flashy highlight reel type plays throughout it. So, you know, you get to these teams fighting in Tier 3 and Tier 4, but it's playoffs. Anything can happen, and it's just been an entertaining series to kick things off.
A wild way to start day 2 of week 1 of the LCQs. Austin and Allen will be with you for the rest of the night here on Alpha. They'll take you through MSU Cyberhawks and Army West Point, and of course Clemson Esports versus the Alabama Huntsville roster a little bit later on in the night. That's going to do it for myself in Cash. Michigan State, a 3-1 victory over Cornell. We say goodbye to Shane Thor as well as Lonely Doc, but we say hello to the bright future of CCL that's yet to come here inside of the playoffs, the rest of the LCQ, and of course next season. Obviously, again, tons more action here on the Alpha stream tonight. We'll send it to a break. When we come back, you're going to have your next matchup here, and Austin and Allen will join you for the rest of the fun.